Hello everyone. Today we will study about pectoral girdle. Usually what do? We study bones separately, muscles separately. And we cannot connect both of these together. Because of that, we always have confusion what to start first and how to go ahead. So today what we'll do is a bit different approach. Let's see how it goes. Okay. And if you have any questions, you can always comment below the comment section. Okay. So if you see pectoral girdle, what is pectoral girdle? First, let us understand that. Okay. In this particular picture, while dissecting in dissection hall, you might see that once you reflect the skin, I hope you can see my pointer. This is the skin area. And once you reflect the skin, you made incision and you reflect the skin, you will see superficial fascia, you will see deep fascia, which is reflected here at the pectoral region. How are you looking at this picture? You're looking from the side. Okay. So that means the cadaver from the side view. Okay. Arm is abducted means away from the midline, and you're looking from the side view. Okay. So here you can see that this is the biggest muscle of the pectoral region, where skin superficial fascia is reflected, and you're looking at pectoralis major, which is a big muscle. Pectoral region and biggest muscle of pectoral region. That's why this muscle is called as pectoralis major. Now let's say I want to see which muscles are inside pectoralis major. Now we are going layer by layer dissection. So once we reflect the pectoralis major, what do? We make usually a cut along the origin. Origin is towards the midline. Midline means at the sternum. So this is the sternum bone here. You can see that this is the sternal bone. So you can see that we made an incision along the line of attachment of pectoralis major and reflected that towards laterally. Laterally means away from the body. So here, once we reflected, you can see in this second picture, this is the pectoralis major, which is reflected laterally. Okay. Then we can see which is there is another muscle beneath it. This is called as pectoralis minor, because we had seen pectoralis major. Once we reflect this, we can see next muscle, that is pectoralis minor. Okay. Now, what is the last and smallest muscle here? You can see this one, which is, the cut portion of pectoralis major is what you can see here. And beneath this, we can see the small muscle. This is called as subclavius. What is subclavius? Sub means below. Clavius means clavicle. Here you have clavicle, and beneath the clavicle, you can see this is the clavicle bone, and beneath the clavicle bone, you will see the smallest muscle, which is called as subclavicle. Okay. Subclavius. Subclavius. Okay. So what are the three muscles of pectoral region? Pectoralis major, which has been reflected from the cut portion here and towards lateral side. And we can see this is the pectoralis minor, and this is the subclavius muscle. Okay. Now, why we have to study these muscles before studying bones? Because you need to understand what muscles exist here. Now, later on, we will study how these muscles are originated and where do they go for its insertion, what are its actions. Okay. Now, let us understand pectoral region and pectoral girdle region in detail. Okay. Now, let's say, see, it's a closer look to see pectoralis major and pectoralis minor. Once you reflect pectoralis major, immediately you can't keep your scalpel beneath the pectoralis major to reflect that, because what happens is just beneath the pectoralis major you will see some pectoral vessels and nerves beneath it. Okay. Some of the nerves are piercing this pectoralis minor and then supplying your, okay, medial pectoral nerve, lateral pectoral nerve, lateral pectoral vessels. Okay. So all these pectoral vessels and pectoral nerves are here supplying this pectoralis major and minor. Okay. This is the closer look. Now let us understand what is, now we finished front region. Now we are going back side. Okay. So to understand all this area as a pectoral region or pectoral girdle, let us understand what is on the back of the area. So here you can see on the back side, this is the biggest muscle. That means you have reflected skin, you have reflected superficial fascia, you have reflected deep fascia. Deep fascia is very thick on the back of the neck and even on the back. Okay. So once we reflect all this region, which is a very big muscle, which is easily available here to see. This is called as trapezius muscle. It looks like a trapezoid structure. Okay, so that's why this muscle is called as trapezius. See, there are two big muscles of the back, first layer muscles, trapezius, okay, and latissimus dorsi. Latissimus means large, dorsi means dorsum, dorsal side of the body. So you have latissimus dorsi here. These are the two big muscles. Now, if I want to see what is more beneath it, I just have to remove off this trapezius a bit, and then I'll go for a deeper muscles here. You can see that there are some muscles which are coming from this particular bone, which is called as scapula. What is scapula? This is a scapula bone. Okay, scapula bone has got medial end. Medial means towards the midline, and lateral end is away from the midline. So this is my scapula on the towards the left side. You can see medial end of the scapula and lateral end of the scapula. From the medial end, you have certain muscles which are going to the from the medial end, you can see some muscles which are going for its attachment to the spine. Okay, vertebral column. You can see that these are muscles which are going from the medial end to the spine, and some muscles which are going towards the lateral end. Okay, lateral end onwards, there are some muscles which are going towards the next bone. What is the bone here which is lateral to the body? The humerus. Okay, there are some muscles going away from the lateral end. Here you can see these are the muscles which are from the lateral end, and some muscles which are on the scapula. So you're actually looking on the front side of scapula. If I have to show you on the back side, there are some muscles which are coming from the medial end, which are coming from the lateral side, and some muscles which are on the back side of the scapula. Okay, so I hope you are you're understanding this. Now let us see, there are something there is another muscle which we have missed out here. You can see there is one muscle which is connecting the scapula, which is connecting the pectoral region together. Okay, which muscle is it? This is the muscle which is covering the shoulder. Okay, so which muscle is this? This is the muscle, the deltoid. Okay, deltoid, big muscle. It has anterior part, lateral part, and the posterior part. So you will see that this is the posterior part, lateral part is on the side, and anterior part is on the front. Okay, now let's see that we will do one by one bone, so that we can understand easily what is pectoral girdle. So before going to the bones, I want you to understand why pectoral girdle together we have to study as a section. Okay, why? Because what happens is, usually when we take a heavy weight, when we carry a weight, what exactly we're doing? You do a thing, you just go pick a bucket full of water and you start walking. So here you can see that there's a weight. When you carry it, it is transferred from your hand to your arm, okay, to your shoulder, and slowly the weight is transferred to the body via pectoral girdle, and from there the weight is transferred to the middle axial skeleton, and from the axial skeleton it is separated into two parts, divided. The weight which you are carrying with one hand has been transferred to the axial skeleton via pectoral girdle, and from there the weight is transferred between the two lower limbs, and via that the weight is transferred to the ground. That's how when we carry something weighing, it is how it transferred to the axial skeleton by pectoral girdle. Okay, so I hope you understand the functional aspect of it. Now let's see what is this clavicle. Okay, so before understanding clavicle, so let us understand clavicle in detail. So when you are understanding, usually when you are studying clavicle, clavicle is most confusing bone. It looks very simple, but still it is complicated for most of the students. So I want you to understand clavicle in a easier way. If you look at the skeleton, look at this picture first. If you see the skeleton, clavicle is how it is located. it has one medial end which is rounded. So in my hand, you can see there's a clavicle in my hand. So here the medial end is rounded, okay, and lateral end is flat. Okay, you can see that. I'm giving it closer look for you guys to see. So there is a medial end which is rounded, okay, and lateral end which is flat. Okay, medial end means close to the midline, lateral end is away from the midline. Okay, so medial end is rounded, lateral end is flat. Now let's see how it should be kept in anatomical position. How do you determine the side of the clavicle and how to keep it in anatomical position? Medial end is rounded, lateral end is flat. So you keep medial end towards the middle side and lateral end laterally, so that it gives you side of the clavicle. Okay, how can you determine the side? You can keep it like this also, right? Upside down also, it can be a mistake. So first you have to understand which is superior surface and which is inferior surface. Inferior surface and superior surface. First, the clavicle looks this way. You can see that there is, okay, curving of the clavicle. Okay, you can see that. So for forward it is convex and laterally it is concave. Okay, cave like structure at the front, so it goes backwards. Okay, you can see that. You can see here, it is in this picture, you can see it is forwards medially and backwards laterally. Okay, so you can see that medial end should be kept on the middle, lateral end should be on the lateral side. Superior surface is smoother compared to the inferior surface. Inferior surface, if you have confusion between which is superior and inferior surface, just turn it and check. On the inferior side there is rough ridge. Okay, so this rough ridge and there is a small elevation. You can see that there is a elevation and tubercle here. Okay, a ridge and a tubercle here on the inferior margin, inferior surface. Okay, so when you turn this has to be on the inferior side. Okay, superior side it is smoother and inferior side it is rough. Okay, you can make out that. And most important, this tubercle which is called as conoid tubercle, that has to be towards back side. Okay, towards the posterior side. So what are, once again I'll just revise quickly what are the landmarks to identify the anatomical position and side determination. Side determination, first you have to keep the medial end rounded end on the medial side, flat end on the lateral side. Superior surface smooth, inferior surface rough. Okay, and there is a tubercle which is called as conoid tubercle, which should be on the posterior aspect of the bone, back side. Okay, so that gives you side of the clavicle. Which side clavicle this is my left clavicle. So how can you keep it in anatomical position? Many times in viva, when we ask students, show me anatomical position, students show that this is how the anatomical position is. They keep it horizontal and in a straight line. But if you check clavicle, when you feel the clavicle within yourself, the medial end is downward, okay, and forwarded. Forward means towards the examiner. Okay, let's hope that my screen is the examiner and I am a student who is giving viva. So how will I keep my anatomical position? I should keep this, the rounded end forward, forward and downward. Okay, so and lateral end backward, okay, and upward. Okay, so this is the anatomical position of the clavicle. Okay, all right, I hope you are understanding. Anatomical position is not straight like this, like this. Okay, medial end forward and downward, lateral end backward and upward. Okay, so that gives the anatomical position of the clavicle. I hope you're understanding this, right? Now let's understand what are the surfaces and borders. Okay, yeah, here in this particular picture, look at the picture. You can see this is the clavicle, this is the superior surface, and in this below picture you can see both superior surface and inferior surface. Okay, inferior surface is naturally rough. Okay, superior surface smoother compared to the inferior surface. Okay, because inferior surface, why it is rough? Always you should ask why. Then only you will understand easily the concept behind this anatomical structures. Okay, inferior surface, what we can see? We can see there are some tubercles, there is a ridge where some ligaments are attached. When there is a ligament attached or a muscle attached, when it causes a pull, it gives a kind of roughness on a bone. Okay, so here you can see on the inferior surface, look at this, you can see there is a groove for attachment of subclavius muscle, and laterally you can see that there is a rough ridge here. You can see that this is the ridge for attachment of a ligament beneath the clavicle. We will just see the attachments in the next slide. Okay, so there are muscles and ligaments which are attached. Some of the ligaments are coming from bottom and getting attached to the undersurface of the lateral end. Okay, so I hope you understand the surfaces. Let us quickly revise once again. Medial end, lateral end. The clavicle is the only long bone of the body which is present horizontally in our body. It's a long bone which is present horizontally. It has a medial rounded end, lateral flattened end. It has medial 2/3 which is rounded and cylindrical, lateral 1/3 which is flat and thinner. Okay, and it has anterior or medial 2/3 is anteriorly convex and lateral 1/3 is anteriorly concave. Okay, it is having a cave like depression on the anterior side. So anatomical position is you have to keep the rounded end medial, lateral end on the lateral aspect. Superior surface is smoother, inferior surface is rough because of the attachments. All right. Okay, anatomical position is medial end should be anterior and forward, lateral end should be backwards and upwards. Okay, now let's see what are the muscle attachments. Look at the muscles. This is the pectoralis major, we already discussed that. This is the pectoralis minor beneath the pectoralis major. Look at the back side. There's a big muscle which is getting attached to the clavicle only on the lateral end. Okay, this is actually not the muscle which is going to the lateral end of the clavicle, but the scapula. Okay, so we can see here in this picture, you can see this is the pectoralis major muscle, and you can see this particular muscle. See here, you can see this muscle. This is what? Deltoid. And look at this muscle. This one is the trapezius. We discussed all these three muscles at the beginning of this session. You can see pectoralis major. So what is the attachment of pectoralis major? On the anterior side, medial 2/3, you will see attachment of pectoralis major. Okay. Lateral 1/3, you will see attachment on the anterior side, attachment of deltoid muscle. Back side, you will see attachment lateral 1/3. On the posterior aspect, attachment is trapezius muscle. Okay, so in this particular picture, you can see the attachments. So medial end posteriorly, means back side. You will see attachment of the neck muscles. Okay, sternocleidomastoid muscle. Sterno means sternum. Okay, cleido means clavicle. So you will see clavicular head of sternocleidomastoid. Mastoid is behind your ear. Mastoid process. Okay, so this muscle is attached here at the medial end of the clavicle on the posterior surface. Okay, so what are the muscles? Quickly we'll revise. Pectoralis major, deltoid on the anterior side of the clavicle or the anterior surface of the clavicle. Okay, medial 2/3 it's pectoralis major, lateral 1/3 it's the deltoid. Now posterior surface, medial 2/3 or medial 1/3 only clavicular head of the sternocleidomastoid, and the lateral 1/3 we have trapezius. Okay, now let's see when you can see at the bottom surface, under surface of this clavicle in this particular picture, you can see there are three important ligaments and a muscle attached here. Okay, So this muscle is called as subclavius. Already we discussed during this section. This is subclavius, below the clavicle. Okay, it is inserted here. And three ligaments are attached. What are the three ligaments? Costoclavicular ligament. Costal refers to the ribs. Okay, so first rib onwards, you get a ligament which goes upwards and gets attached to the clavicle towards the medial end. What is this ligament called as? Costoclavicular ligament. Laterally, you have two ligaments which are coming from the scapula. See here, you can see this picture. In this picture, you can make out very clearly. Okay, you can see there are two ligaments which are coming here. What are the two ligaments? What is this aspect? This is the scapula. From scapula, we have two processes. Can you look at this? There are two processes here. I'll just show you the scapula. Scapula has got two processes. Okay. What are the two processes? Coracoid process on the front and the back, acromion process. Acromion process where lateral end of the clavicle articulates here. Okay, articulation means joint. Sometimes even examiners ask you to show the articulation. So when you want to show the articulation, this is how you will have to show the articulation between the acromion process and the lateral end of the clavicle, forming acromioclavicular joint. Okay, so you can see the capsule of acromioclavicular joint. On it, you can see a thickened ligament which is called as acromioclavicular ligament. Now, these are the two ligaments which we will see inferior surface of the lateral end. What are the two ligaments? See here, coracoclavicular ligament. That means from the coracoid process, there is a ligament which is going to the undersurface on the coracoid, from coracoid process to the conoid tubercle. Okay, there is conoid tubercle. I told you, right? There is a tubercle below the clavicle on the posterior aspect. You can see an elevation here. This is called as conoid tubercle. So to that conoid tubercle, we will see attachment of coracoclavicular ligament. And then here you will see coracoclavicular ligament has two parts, okay, trapezoid part and conoid part. So trapezoid part is attached to the ridge. Ridge means longitudinal. Tubercle means rounded. Okay. So this is the trapezoid ridge and conoid tubercle. So both are actually coracoclavicular ligament only. Okay. It has two parts. Coracoclavicular part, trapezoid part and conoid part. So I hope you understood the attachments of the clavicle. So with this, I would like to end our session on clavicle. So I hope you understood something. Let me know in comment section if you could relate and understand this clavicle part.